Well, thank you. Okay, let's keep moving along with our conference, and it's with great pleasure that I introduce our next panel discussion that today will be led by David Brasfield, the Secretary of WGIN, WGIN. He is here, and joining him in the panel discussion, we have four great panelists. I'd like to invite them to the stage. Nour Slimen from the landscape architect IDOM. We have Christina Moujaes, landscape architect from M Design, and joining us from Hunter, the area manager Rammi Khalil. And also joining us is the principal of InSite, Richard Kleinig. So guys, please come and join us on the stage. David has a brief introduction, and I'll leave it to you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Brasfield. I'm a board member and secretary from the World Green Infrastructure Network, which Philip is calling WGIN. We also call it WGIN. First of all, I just want to thank Ziad and Philip and the sponsors, especially the Gover Group, which has sponsored my visit to UAE. To all the speakers, landscape design contestants in the prize cycle, and all of the professionals that make this event possible. And especially just thanks for the opportunity to lead exactly this session, because connection to nature, that's a topic that is important to all of us here, whether we know it or not, and it's also very dear to my heart. And why did I say all of us have an important connection with nature? Even in this country and the culture, which I only understand superficially, I'm from Norway, I see amazing things that signal a real profound appreciation for nature. Just yesterday, I saw olive trees that are 100 years old and more, weighing several tons, being imported here to the UAE, and that tells me something about the love and appreciation for nature here. And then as human beings created as an integral part of this living planet, and especially as landscape architects and contractors, which many of you are, you're all experts about our need for nature in your way. That's why even with the limited time we have available today, I want to, I would really have loved to have questions from you, but we're not going to have time for that today. So why don't we let our panelists introduce themselves. So Rammi, maybe you can start with a few words about yourself.
So my name is Rammi Khalil, and I work as an area manager for Hunter Industries, a global leader in manufacturing of smart irrigation solutions. I'm working with them for the past 5 years, but been around in the industry for about 22 years here in the Middle East.
Right, and Nour?
Hello, hi. My name is Nour Slimen. I'm a landscape architect at IDOM. We have an office here in Abu Dhabi and also in Riyadh. And yeah, it's like we work on different projects of landscape in the Middle East, even though we're based in Madrid.
Yes, and it says on your LinkedIn page that you are passionate about nature.
I would say so.
Yeah.
I'm an architect, but I then changed because I loved landscape more.
Yeah. And Christina, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Christina Moujaes. I'm a landscape architect at M Design, and I just started working, but I will be bringing a fresh vision to today's panel discussion, hopefully.
Right, and then we have Richard from Australia, but practicing here now.
Thanks, David. Yes, my name's Richard Kleinig. I'm a principal at InSite in Abu Dhabi. I've been in the region now for about 2 years. Prior to that, I've had experience in Australia, London, and throughout Europe as well. One project in particular that I wanted to, I guess, highlight was my experience on the Crossrail Canary Wharf roof garden. That's a project in London and quite relevant to our discussion, I think.
Yeah. So actually, even at the opening session today, we heard some references to poets. And I would like to also start with a reference to a poet who I think says something important about nature. This is in 1926, the Lebanese poet Khalil Gibran. He wrote, which book was it? Well, anyway, he wrote, "Trees are poems that the earth writes upon the sky," which is really beautiful in a way, and I think just giving a sort of a philosophical and mystical framework for what we're going to discuss, I think it might make it a little richer, because it's very easy for us to talk about ecosystem services and scientific things, but there's also the sense of wonder and mystery in nature that's also important to remember. It's a real important part of our, I would say, a spiritual nourishment that we all need as beings on this living planet together. So 30 years after Khalil Gibran wrote those words, then Rachel Carson, she was one of the first authors writing about the coming environmental crisis. She wrote the book Silent Spring, but she also wrote an essay titled A Sense of Wonder. And that was talking about children's development, both mental and emotional, but also cognitive. And she was just talking about the importance of nature contact for their children's development. And then another reference is Albert Einstein. I don't think I need to say who he was. But when he was working at Princeton University, it wasn't so seldom that he would get stuck on a problem. He was dealing with some really serious problems and challenges. And so what did Albert do when he got stuck? There was a little forest on a property right by the Princeton University. So Albert Einstein would go out into the forest, and he would intentionally look at the complexity and beauty and mystery of nature, and that would be his way of rebooting his brain. He said that gave him more intuition, and that intuition was a very important part of his problem-solving process. It wasn't just computing power and IQ, but it was also the intuition, which was helped by contact with nature. So, yeah, let's get into our discussion.
I'll give him mine. Oh. No, don't worry. We can share.
Okay, yeah. And excuse my fumbling here. I am dependent on my notes to be coherent today. Let's see. So first, I would like to address a question to you, Richard. And this is about urban ecology and planning. And the question is, what strategies these days are the most effective for introducing greenery in highly built up and densified and densifying environments these days?
Yeah, it's a, well, critically important one. I mean, we've become very good in our industry at squeezing landscape into spaces wherever we can. But I think the three obvious ones that come to mind are your green roofs and walls, internal planting, and also elevated landscapes. So whether that's podiums or right through to kind of urban farming strategies. So obviously when the city densifies, we then need to start stacking our landscapes to suit. But your green roofs and walls, certainly the last 20, 30 years has become incredibly important in our densifying cities. Both in equal measure, I think, and it's obviously challenging conditions here in the Middle East, but you certainly see really successful examples of those, both walls and roofs. And that then extends through to your internal planting. So where you're taking roofs and green spaces either fully indoors or partially indoors, outdoors, where we can start to control microclimates and create greater comfort, especially obviously in really warm climates like this. That's critically important for human comfort and interaction, to making sure that we're designing them and implementing them for the right reasons, not just a greening thing, but also the social uplift and the benefits that come along with that.
Thank you. Okay, let's see if any of the other panelists have anything to add. Do you have any supplements to that? No, okay, then we can continue here. So one thing connected to the densification is the fact that almost all countries in the world have signed the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. And in that framework, there's a target 12, which says that all countries shall reverse nature loss in their cities. So how do you reverse nature loss when you're densifying at the same time? Basically, Richard, that what you're telling us that it's basically the only way to accomplish this. It is integrating nature into the built environment, into the transport infrastructure and other infrastructure, opening up piped waterways, all of these things. It's the only chance to reverse nature loss. And if you look at nature loss in European cities, for example, there's only 4 that have had a nature gain in the last 20 years. All of the other ones have lost nature, so it's a huge challenge. Okay, so this next question is actually for the whole panel, I think. And I know you have something to say about this, Richard, but let's see if anyone else has something. So what policies and incentives can encourage building owners to invest in building integrated greening?
Well, I can say that we should start from phase 1, because landscape architecture always comes last. Even when in the urban design, in the master planning, now it's really hard to be the first in the field. It's mainly the urban designer, the architect, they are first. But now we see that things are changing. And one of the things is that, I will give the example in Arabia, in Riyadh right now, landscape architecture, it's a field that starts in the master plan. It's not something that comes last. So that encourages the landscape to be part of it, but not only to come at the end. And I think it's so important because we have our vision of how the city should be, how the parks, where we should integrate those. So for that, I think it's a good policy to make landscape architecture come first with the urban designer and not last when they finished building the whole city, and then we come just for the greenery, as they said. So for me, that's a main important policy to make.
Okay, maybe we'll just continue then, because there are a lot of policies in other parts of the world. Europe actually has a lot of very interesting policies. There's requirements for biodiversity plans for all cities of 20,000 inhabitants or more. But the question then is, can you just import these policies from the rest of the world, or are there any challenges bringing them to this region? And how do you import a policy from Europe, for example?
I don't think it's about policy when it comes to this. Like policy to say, I don't know, the example I would give is Riyadh also, because there we have, I don't know, 1.5% of greenery, and they are aiming now for 9. So these are, I think, good policies, but later we're not gonna use the same type of landscape, not the same type of plants. The perception of the landscape, it's different from Europe and the Middle East. So I think policy when it comes to how we should use the space, it's so important, but not to take everything from outside and try to implement it here, because every culture is different. How we use the space, the public space, it's so different. So yeah.
Yeah, Rammi, please.
Yeah, I can also add on that. And it's very interesting because we sometimes think that what can we import from there to here? Well, what we can import from here to there, because if you look at Abu Dhabi, they're fairly well advanced in systems like the Pearl rating of landscaping projects, the istidama and mustadam ways of managing such landscape projects. We have to also mind the social and the religious and the cultural aspect of importing ideas from other parts of the world, because socially and culturally here it's different, although it's a melting pot of so many beautiful nationalities and backgrounds. So it's a very good, valid point, and I think they're doing great with it. There were 2 recent massive big greening projects that I've mentioned earlier, the 104 parks done by Abu Dhabi municipality, which was done recently in Abu Dhabi. Dubai recently announced 18 billion dirham worth of greenery projects, 800 parks to be released in Dubai within the next 6 years. So that says something about importing certain concepts and applying it the way locally suitable.
Yeah. Okay, Richard, I think maybe you had something to say about policy as well.
Yeah.
And you also, maybe you could weave in your ideas about the importance of monitoring and data collection, etc., as a way of supporting policy process.
Yeah, so I mean, one example that came to mind in terms of policy was in the city of Linz in Germany. They have a basically incentivized green roof system. So every development is mandated to have a green roof. So admittedly, and as we're discussing, that's not necessarily always relevant in the Middle East, but I think there are ways that we could manipulate that kind of strategy, whether it be minimum shade cover or minimum green cover per development, a minimum number of trees, for instance. There could be many things that could be not only mandatory but incentivized by the government with whether that be currency or other exemptions. And then onto the idea of monitoring. So I guess in terms of tactically and statistically, how do we actually measure the success of these developments? So whether it's let's say it's an extensive green wall, what is that actually doing in that specific environment, so that we can bring data back to that in terms of measuring evapotranspiration, how the microclimate's being affected, what the actual heat mapping is doing in that area relative to an area without a green wall. And also even carbon sequestration is a possibility these days. So albeit on a small scale, a really big green wall is actually locking away carbon for the future. So there are a few ways that we can statistically and quantifiably look at something and its success.
Right, so quantifying all of the ecosystem services more completely will be a compelling argument for new investments.
Because for better or worse, there will be naysayers in terms of the cost of these things or the benefit of them. So if we can statistically say the benefits are X, Y, and Z, and they're 30–40% better, that's a great selling point and can help with those incentives. Yeah.
Okay, Christina, you've been very silent. You're not going to get away with this, so here comes a question for you. How are landscape aesthetics changing And what influence will this have on nature in cities? And please remember the last session before us, they had a lot of discussion about aesthetics as well, so maybe you could build on what they have said with your own ideas.
Okay, so in my opinion, it's not the aesthetics themselves that are changing, but it's our perception of what makes a landscape beautiful. For example, nowadays, people tend to overlook visual composition and focus more on sustainability, safety, inclusivity, even environmental responsibility. So it's the idea that the definition of beauty is being shaped by these concepts. So a space is no longer defined as aesthetically pleasing just because it looks good. It has to perform well socially and environmentally. And I remember there's this occurring debate that's always, is it form follows function? Does function follow form? Well, nowadays, I think with our growing awareness, it's the aesthetics that are following functions, and that really defines and nurtures the well-being of people and the cities. So that's basically it.
Yeah. Okay. I have a feeling we need a whole new session for a discussion about beauty.
Yeah.
There's really a lot of thinking to be done about that. And I'm always wondering, well, okay, can our perception of beauty change? I think it can, but there are some things that are built into our DNA as well, the things that have to do with biophilic design.
I think it's not only about DNA. I think what we see on the TV, what is like for us green, it means lush green, but it depends on where you are. It doesn't mean like a prairie, it's beautiful in the summer, yes, when it's dry. It's like lush green of that we have here. It's like you can have a different kind of green. It shouldn't be the green that we see in the UK or in Switzerland. Like this type of green also, it's so beautiful, and we should enhance what we have here, not try to, it's like copy an image of a greenery that it's from outside because we thought that that's the green that we want. And I think we're always in a battle of this with the clients. It's not only about our perception, but also what the client wants at the end. So it's like, we need to look at the beauty of what we have and not try always to have another different type of beauty, let's say, of landscape.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe there's a question about how much beauty is programmed by commercial interests rather than just a true appreciation for nature. And yeah, so long discussions. But Rammi, we have you here. There's been a lot of discussion earlier today about water stewardship. But you are an expert on this, of course. And I have an easy question for you and then a difficult question. And we need to get through it in about 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, so the easy question for you, that is, what innovative design approaches have been most successful for creating vertical rooftop and modular landscapes?
That's a great question. When we talk about modular landscaping, rooftop, structurally challenging landscaping, we have to think about irrigation being the caterer or the server of that landscape. So we implement technologies such as deep root watering systems. We implement technologies such as discrete subsurface irrigation. And all of these elements can be modular and can be done in compact constraints and in structurally challenging landscape. So subsurface irrigation is a way to go for these kind of challenges.
Okay, and then, yeah, moving on. Yeah, thank you.
Here we go.
Moving on, what about soil health, irrigation efficiency, plant selection? How can those be optimized for the microclimates?
So one of the most respected governing bodies of irrigation in the world is the IA, the Irrigation Association of North America. And they've defined the word smart irrigation by a very simple term saying the following. It's the irrigation system that can self-regulate the amount of water based on the plant needs. How can we know the plant needs? We have to implement eyes and ears. We have to implement sensors to get data from the soil, to get data from the surrounding climate. And if we obtain that data, we use smart algorithms in the control systems, then we can reapply the right amount of water needed for the plant.
Right. Okay, so even in the earlier panels today, we have heard a lot about BIM, AI, all of these high technological solutions that we're integrating with landscape planning and practices. I consider nature itself to be a form of technology. It's not a human-intended technology. It is a biological technology that has happened over millions of years. So my question, next one, maybe it's a little harder for you. That is, how can you synthesize your high-tech solutions that you're selling over at your booth there with the natural technology of plants? And I am not a botanist, I'm not even a landscape architect, but one thing I love is trees. I see the way trees can find water that no one else could. They can pump water, they can cool the cities and provide these ecosystem services for us. So this is a technology that is working beside the, what we call actually gray infrastructure that you are adding to the green infrastructure. So, please.
That's a great question, and you've seen I modified my pause to really address this important question. So, one thing to be said, personally, I don't think we could ever replicate what the creator, what God, whatever you believe, has created with living organisms like plants. However, we could mimic. So there is a very interesting function that certain plants and trees do. When they receive a certain stress of lack of water, they tend to reverse their photosynthesis operation and induce more deeper root growth to reach those hard-to-reach wet areas to survive harsh climates. What we can do in smart irrigation system, we can mimic those behavior by artificially inducing a certain stress on plant. It's called deficit irrigation or pulse irrigation, where we intentionally reduce the amount of water on roots, encouraging them to grow stronger, harder, and become more resilient.
Yeah, well, that's a real beautiful example. And actually, it reminds me of a question that I don't think we're going to get to, but which I think is interesting. And that is just how amazingly complex nature and natural systems are. And my personal opinion is that we're just scratching the surface of understanding of natural systems. But as we actually dig down, then we'll start discovering these things, and we will actually be able to co-create with nature rather than just doing what I think has been often a very primitive approach to landscaping. So, but we just have a few minutes, and I have one of my other favorite topics that I would like to ask all of you about. So just maybe each one can have about 30 seconds to address this. The question is about all of the unintentional nature that we have in cities. So we have the wonderful landscape projects that we're seeing and all of the products, and it's all really wonderful, but a real significant amount of the nature that we have in our lives is unintentional. It's what nature is doing all by itself on the side. So the question is, what is the role of all of that unintentional nature in our cities? How can it be good for us, and what can we learn from it?
I think it's a tough one to keep brief, but I'll do my best. I think it serves as the calibration point for our designed landscapes. So effectively like a scientific control point and our measure of what real beauty is, I think. So you're constantly comparing that as the base, our base undesigned landscapes versus our introduced and manipulated landscapes.
Yeah. Christina, we need to hear from you, please.
So I think, take your time.
Oh.
I think that goes back to biophilia itself. which is our aim to reconnect with nature. So that unintentional nature that's coming through, it reminds us how we want to connect with nature through to enhance our mental health and well-being, and in that scope of work, basically, I think so.
Yeah. Nour, do you have something to say about this? I think so. Yes, please.
Yeah, it's like I would give the example of Wadi Hanifa and how unintentional landscape it creates a beautiful landscape because when you have an intentional landscape, you can see how the plant is growing without human intervention. And that's an amazing, because you know how the soil is, what type of plants you have. Is this native tree or a plant it's good for that type of soil or not? So, yeah.
No, I'm good.
Yeah. Okay, so that was exactly the time we had. So you're perfect timing, Nour. I think we need another half hour. Philip, if you're listening. Okay, perfect. Philip, you have to invite us back next year, and we'll finish our discussion. Huge thanks to all of the panelists today. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, guys. That was a good discussion. I have a pin for you all from Iguzini Lighting here, one of our network sponsors. The best giveaways from the network sponsors, by the way. So here you go. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, and look forward to your involvement tonight. Christina, your father was sitting there very proud in the audience. Great job, guys. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate your presentation.